Hoka sent us their Clifton 9 GTX, and usually when there's just a upper invisible fit upper, there isn't much change underfoot. It's our super fine upper with a bit more room, a bit more volume, better hold. But the real story here is underfoot, as I find the ride now significantly change and in a positive manner. We're going to find out here in the video. Please stay tuned. There's also some scenery of the New Hampshire coast. Hello everybody, Sam from Road Trail Run. Today we're going to take a look at the Hoka Clifton 9 GTX, and I'm also going to take it out on an A/B run and compare it to the regular Clifton 9. So usually when you hear about GTX, that means Gore-Tex, and in this case it is an invisible fit Gore-Tex, which means that the waterproof membrane is laminated to the upper, as you can see the white, as opposed to a booty, which is sort of fits inside. And as the GTX is oriented towards winter running and low light running, every silver element is reflective. The logos, the small front piece, the Gore-Tex thing, this, but also the full eye stay, the element that holds the laces, is reflective. So you have a lot of reflective protection here to make you more visible in the dark to vehicles. So what is really interesting here, of course, is you do get that waterproof, breathable protection, but I am finding this is a significantly different riding shoe, quite significantly different riding shoe than the Clifton 9, and I'm going to give you those impressions from the run. Immediately, one notices the foam is firmer here in the GTX than in the regular. And what that's translated to is a considerably more stable rear ride and more response. It also means the shoe is considerably stiffer. And I have several runs, no flex whatsoever here, whereas with our regular Clifton 9, you see some flex to go with the rocker. So what we've got is kind of a bit of a return to the more rocker-based Clifton, whereas the 9 and the 8 had the combination of flex and rocker. A few more details in terms of the stack height. It is 38, 33, still 5mm drop. I am getting confirmation on Hoka if it is in fact maybe also a bit higher. I don't think so, but it ends up being more cushioned in the front because we have a denser foam here, kind of a more stable front platform as well. So it's more responsive, more of a cushion feel, if firmer. It is $160, which for a Gore-Tex is only $15 more, although there's some colors you can get for less than the regular Clifton. In terms of weight, well, the regular Clifton 8 in my 9 in my US 8.5 was 8.62 ounces or 244 grams, whereas over here with our GTX version, we are at very reasonable 9.51 ounces, 270 grams, so we're 31 grams heavier. What you kind of expect with Gore-Tex. Hoka calls out some changes to the outsole as well. Is they've essentially filled in the pads. You can see here they're hollow, here they're flat to the ground, which is supposed to give more ground contact in wet conditions. As far as the outsole itself, it seems to be the same compound. No change there. I'll get to the fit on the run, give you my impressions from the run from the other day, but very similar. However, what I've noticed right away is a considerably more secure rear hold. Part of it's the midsole, but check this out. We also have, as you can see, a different, more kind of broader, more padded Achilles collar. Whereas here, it's swept back so far that it's not loose, but comparatively, it's a bit loose. So I like that. In terms of the front, and we'll look at it here, we'll also see it on the A/B run. what we've got is a pretty similar fit and last, but I think this guy here is a bit higher. The mesh is a bit stiffer, less pliable, a bit higher toe box height, volume, and width, but it's very well held, if a bit stiff in feel. So before we get out on the run, and we're going to also have a multi-tester review real soon in written form on Road Trail Run, let's talk a bit about the Mach X over here. So the Mach X is almost exactly the same stack height. It's 1 millimeter more front and back, and it weighs about 0.8 ounces less because it has PIBA foam here, and then the same, I think it's the same EVA and firmness as we have the entire midsole here, and it has a Pebax plastic plate. I find it comparatively blocky in the heel compared to our Clifton 9 GTX. You can see how high these rise up, but it is clearly kind of a more faster up-tempo flavor of the Mach. And even though with the PIBA, which is nice and soft, it's a bit kind of overall, maybe a bit firmer even than our GTX. And it's certainly firmer than the regular Clifton. So I'm going to take them out for a run. You'll hear my impressions and then a few conclusions. But don't always think that just because they say GTX, the shoe isn't different elsewhere. It's clearly different here. And I think generally positive. I find this a bit, it's maybe a bit kind of quicker, more flexible feeling, but this one here is more stable, and it feels more cushioned in the front. So let's take them for a run. Beautiful old home there. Headed for the harbor. This is the town's farm. Wow, definitely the GTX is a bit firmer, a bit kind of snappier in response, whereas our orange regular Clifton is a bit softer, a bit bouncier, and especially a bit less stable overall, including at the heel. So I'm thinking the Clifton 9 GTX, kind of in a big departure, is almost an inherently stable neutral shoe, and that's quite a change. Hi everybody, we're crossing over the marsh here. Going to give you some thoughts about fit here after several runs in the GTX version. Of course, I've run in the regular version. The first thing that's noticed is much more, I would say, heel hold and heel stability. Part of this is because we have that firmer foam, but it's really noticeable. The Clifton for me has often been a bit unstable at the rear. The first version was super fast and very unstable, but you can also see here we have a different rear collar. This swept back. I think it's a bit more padded. It holds better. Now, in terms of the front fit, we have the GTX in the mix here, and the blue. It's not quite as foot conforming, but it's a little more rigid, so it holds the midfoot, I think, a little better. I think also because it has a bit more height and volume up front. You can see it looks wider. There's more kind of toe overhead room. The width is a little wider as well. But the negative is there's less flex feel here due to the upper end, that firmer foam. Tongue is about the same, lace is the same. So there's more rear stability because of the firmer foam, and I think changes here to the upper. Less front flexibility. In terms of the foam, we'll get to that, but definitely the GTX version is kind of more responsive, firmer, whereas we're a bit softer, more flexible over here. So soon all the boats will be out of the water and parked over here. Let's go over to the harbor. I'm moving along pretty good in our Cliftons. And I'm surprised. I'm starting to prefer the GTX overall in terms of ride. Quite a bit more kind of quick pop, and I tend to like that. Of course, I do wish they both had a supercritical foam, but so be it. So this is Rye Harbor. The fishing boats are still here. Some are maybe still out there, but the pleasure boats are all in, or mostly all in. No sailboats now through the winter. So our harbor is quite well known, of course, for lobsters, and there's a lobster boat over there, but also fishing for big tuna, which are auctioned off and shipped off to Japan almost immediately. So if you've watched that tuna show on TV, a lot of the fishermen are right from here. Big fish. Moving towards the breakwater. Tell you what I'm really appreciating is the rocker here. Going back a few versions of the Clifton, the rocker I didn't find very effective. Didn't really get you going early enough and made the shoe kind of hard to transition. Not so here. Whereas our non-Gore-Tex is the more flexible kind of platform with some rocker that we've seen the last couple. I think this new firmer foam up front and maybe a bit more stack height, although Hoka says it's the same. It sure feels it. There's more cushion up front, more response, better rocker, and we're not even talking about Gore-Tex upper. Still liking the hole better than the Gore-Tex version. Gonna keep going. Okay, everybody, so after another run, this time with two Clifton 9 GTX, one on each foot, no AB, I've reached some conclusions. First, let's talk about the upper. It is not only roomier, but I think more secure than the regular version. Our laminate of Gore-Tex on the inside with its recycled materials, I think it provides the shoe more support. Not sure how they got more toe box room and width, but it is clear. And you'll only pay $15 more, $160 for the Gore-Tex version. So a very small premium. Now it is about 31 grams heavier at 9.72 ounces, but that's due to the Gore-Tex. But also I think we have a very different ride here, and I don't use that word lightly. This new, definitely somewhat denser or firmer compression molded EVA makes the shoe not only more stable all around, particularly at the rear, gives it back the traditional Clifton rocker, and you can see there is no flex versus, as we saw earlier, the regular Clifton. So this is a different makeup, a different geometry underfoot. And what does that do? Well, it makes it more stable. This foam is either denser, definitely denser, but also has, as you pick up the pace, some kind of nice rebound. So it's very, very pleasant to run. Not a soft, super bouncy, super critical foam, but about as nice an EVA type blend as is out there right now. So that foam reminds me of a slightly more energetic Power Run from Saucony, for example. A definitely more energetic feel than, say, Nike's traditional React. So when you get that broad platform, as you can see here, our 38, 33 stack height, you have, and about 9.7 ounces in a US 9. What you have now is I would call it a very solid daily trainer type shoe. Now, many, including me, used the other Cliftons, the earlier ones, as daily trainers, but they were on the kind of light side in terms of support and stability. And I personally had problems with the earliest Clifton with the rear stability in particular. This is rock solid. You could almost say that this is Hoka's inherently stable shoe in the lineup. So in terms of the stability, it is not, it's called a neutral shoe, that's for sure. but it is very, very stable and steady. So what does it remind me of? Well, it reminds me of a more energetic rocker-based Saucony ride, a less blocky, if a little, somewhat less stacked up Nimbus 25, and the Nimbus 25 I found had a blocky heel. In terms of the Mach X, that's your speedier shoe, but it actually, for me, has a kind of more rigid heel feel. We do have a 5mm drop, but because of this denser foam, and believe me, there's plenty of cushioning here, the rocker is now very effective. In other words, in a lot of prior Cliftons, it was kind of hard to find at slower paces. Here it is very easy to find and roll through. What would I like to see? Well, I'd like this to be the platform for the Clifton 10. I would appreciate a touch more flexibility at toe off. There are ways to do that. Maybe something like what Ultra does with their inner flex, or some modifications to the outsole design. As far as the outsole on wet, well, it's pouring now, but I haven't really run them on the wet. I imagine it'll grip just fine. Not sure filling in the pods will, as they've done, will make a huge difference. So, an outstanding all-around daily trainer from Hoka here in the Clifton 9 GTX. We're going to have a full multi-tester written review real soon. And maybe I should go for another run because it is now pouring. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great run.